Greetings World Walkers, FiOth here, and today I'm bringing you a super tanky, super crowd control capable and high damage build, albeit with a little bit of setup. This is Indomitable Cultist, and the aim is to be able to tackle Apocalypse without dying every 2 minutes, whilst also contributed greatly to the damage over time and overall diminishing of hard targets. Very effective at killing the chaff, but the chaff has never been the issue with this difficulty setting. The problem is when you fight the bosses, and with this one you will be able to tickle them down if you follow the ideal way of leveraging its function. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's get to it. Our two archetypes are Challenger with Rampage and Ritualist with Miasma. I'm picking these two because I want to use Die Hard in order to survive a death blow, and Ritualist's Miasma to debilitate targets over a large area. Our amulet is the Whispering Marble. I can't believe how long it's been since I got this, and I have barely been using it if you exclude the past couple of months. This is amazingly good, especially when you need to tank damage, and we're gonna combine this with another items in order to turn the defensive capabilities into actual damage. Ring number 1 is the Dried Clay Ring. Grants 1 stack of Bulwark, increases all damage by 60% of the total damage reduction granted by Bulwark stacks. With this and the Whispering Marble we have 4 Bulwark stacks. For every stack of additional Bulwark that you get diminished returns by the active itself, but it still stacks up to impressive numbers. 60% of those numbers will now be added to damage across the board. There is a very specific thing we're gonna synergize here, and that is Die Hard, the prime perk of Challenger. When receiving fatal damage, the Challenger becomes invulnerable for 3 seconds and regenerates 100% of max health, while on cooldown 10 minutes, the Challenger gains 1 stack of Bulwark. So you are actually empowering yourself if you go down, because you get the 5th stack of Bulwark, increases defensive capability and damage. I wouldn't say go and down yourself once so you lose Die Hard, but if the fight's going south and you get downed, you are revived to be even more effective than before, upping your chances of survival significantly. Ring number 2 is the Ahane Crystal. Deal 5% additional damage for each unique status effect the target is suffering from. This is incredibly good. One of the best rings in the game. You get it from Hardcore. It is worth going into Geisha on Hardcore Veteran just to kill 1 world boss and get this ring. Trust me, especially if you play Ritualist, this is one of the best rings you can have. Third, we have the Burden of the Destroyer. Do I need to talk about this? It is one of the most overwhelmingly powerful items in the game. Decreases ideal range of all firearms by 25%, increases all damage dealt by 15%. All damage dealt. Needn't say anything more about this, it is amazing, use it. I am a bit torn about Stone of Malevolence. Stone of Malevolence generates mod power. Mod power is not my primary focus with this build and can be swapped for other rings, let's say the Alumni ring, but I want this to be here so we can get our primary weapons mod going when we fight bosses and need to deal a lot of damage a lot quick. Stay with me as I explain how it functions. Time for our primary, and here I have a couple suggestions according to what you are trying to do. No build is set in stone, and I want your feedback on this, so leave it in the comment section below. Sparkfire Shotgun is 100% the gun we will be using, and for the purposes of this I am using Overflow and Twisting Wounds. Overflow I am kinda adamant about because it gives you shock and overload, but the fire rate and reload speed is what is extremely important to me, because this is a 7 in the mag weapon and you will be reloading a lot. So the firing speed and reload will help you up your DPS. For Twisting Wounds, I have a couple of suggestions. I love Twisting Wounds and the fact that it is a plus 20% damage when the target is bleeding, and because the target will be bleeding all the time, either because you shot it with this gun or you use Miasma, the ability will proc and you will be dealing the extra damage. There is another one we can use here though. It's Fetid Wounds. increases critical chance of this weapon by 5% per unique negative status effect on the enemy, max 15% increase. So how do you make sure this is always active? Well, if you activate Overflow, you apply Shock. Sparkfire itself applies fire, and Fetid Wounds, if it's level 10, will apply corrosive. 3 status effects right out of the bat, 15% increased critical chance. My issue here is that because our items don't really help us with crit, that's pretty much what you get. 15% from here, and the relic fragment we will be discussing will give you an additional 10. It's not that crazy because the gun is kind of semi-auto, doesn't have the highest rate of fire, and you can probably miss damage. Whilst with Twisting Wounds, once they're bleeding, it's 20% more damage. 20%, guys, is not a number to scoff at. It is extremely potent. So, if you ask me, playing it safe, I prefer Twisting Woods, but ultimately it's up to you. Our melee is the Krell Axe, and we want this because Krell Edge will apply Overload, and combined with Stormbringer will decrease the status resistance of the enemy by 10%. Get Stormbringer to plus 10, apply it here, and initiate with it. Start combat with it by applying it on the enemy. Especially beefier enemies and bosses will be quite debilitating by applying this, so don't forget to leverage it. Our secondary is the Tech 22. Not necessarily the best you can use or your preferred one. You can use the SMG, you can use the Silverback, whatever you prefer. This is 100% utility. I have Tremor and Time Weave here just to stop enemies in their tracks and allow me more time to deal more damage. The good thing about this build is that it's fire and forget in some instances. You apply Miasma, your Miasma is pretty powerful, and you can focus the biggies whilst the smaller ones die on their own. Having them slowed will ensure that whilst they're dying on their own, you are free to move about and do your thing without worrying about them reaching you before they hit the dirt. I am using Tranquil Heart again because it is amazing and I love it. Combined with Regrowth, your generation is insane and I highly recommend you use it. Mythic skill cooldown, mythic ranged critical chance, and mythic elemental damage is what I suggest you get here. Especially the crit can be surprisingly effective, and with Fetid Wounds you are really gonna feel it. If you don't feel it so much, you can swap it for maybe ranged damage, but that will depend again on what you combine it with. Rule of thumb, in RPGs like that, where numbers add up, don't try to be a jack of all trades, focus one thing, go for it, and you will be rewarded at the end of the day. You wanna go Fetid Wounds, get more crit. You're gonna go Twisting Wounds, get more ranged damage because you are getting plus 20% on all enemies that are bleeding. Our traits, as you see here, full strong back, full affliction, you get them by default because of the archetypes. Fortify full, regrowth full, vigor full, endurance full, spirit full, expertise full, amplitude full, bark skin full, 5 in recovery and 5 in footwork. If you want to use a stamina enhancing concoction like green tea, for example, you can take recovery out of here and put it into handling. This is a good idea because you're using a scattergun. If you want to focus enemies in the further distance, you want the spread to reduce a bit, and handling will help. Not to mention weapon swapping improves, and overall utility of your arsenal goes through the roof. For our armor, we will be using Leto. Leto is great because if you go with all the defenses that we discussed, you will be looking at something like this, a total damage reduction of 70.8 that will further benefit if diehard procs and you get an additional stack of bulwark. All in all, extremely beefy. If you use a meat shake instead of something for your stamina, you can go to about 80% damage reduction. 80% is pretty nutty, kids. Give it a shot. Before we go, I'd like to present an alternative. I hope you didn't skip most of the bit just to get to this screen and get the wrong info out of it. This is an alternative I have been testing. It uses Sinister Totem and Shadow of Misery in order to provide damage in a different way. I don't really like it as much because if you go here, your total damage reduction is 61 1.3, augmented a bit if you proc diehard. That 20 down to maybe about 10% according to your configuration damage reduction will get you killed. Sadly, on Apocalypse it's gonna be very hard to stay alive unless all your dodges are on point. If all our dodges were on point, we wouldn't be so inclined to wear this hulk of metal on our backs in order to survive the odds. So, if you want my opinion, I say the Whispering Marble Clearing combination is gonna give you a lot more ease of use than this kind of thing. I know Sinister Totem is a very impressive necklace, but I don't think it's worth losing all the tankiness to get more damage out of it. Again, this is an alternative. You can use it and you let me know how much mileage you got out of it. So, this is it, World Walkers. My Indomitable Cultist build. Subscribe, like, and share this if you found this useful and informative. Making more builds for Remnant, some of which you can find right here. Until next time, be well, stay frosty, and always strive for perfection. Cheers!